dawn bleeds slowly across the horizon, a pale gold fighting through mist. The air is heavy with the scent of wet earth and smoke from last night's dying fires. The world is quiet, too quiet, but somewhere in that silence a rhythm breathes. Chains rustle softly. Feet press into damp soil. A line of workers moves through the fields like shadows. Among them is Silas, barefoot, broad-shouldered, motionless eyes that seem to see everything yet reveal nothing. His lips do not move. They never do. The years have taught him that silence can protect, even when it hurts. His voice was taken long ago, but his thoughts remain sharp, alive, dangerous in their stillness. The sun climbs and light spills across his face. His skin glistens with sweat, but his gaze stays steady. Every sound around him tells a story. The creak of wooden wheels, the crack of rope, the murmurs of those who work beside him. He hears everything, remembers everything. Where others might pray for noise to drown out the ache, Silas listens. Silence is his teacher, and it has taught him the shape of cruelty and the rhythm of endurance. When he was a boy, his laughter once echoed through these same fields. He remembers that sound only faintly now, like a dream he cannot touch. He remembers speaking once too, words that rose like sunlight, bold and fearless, words that brought punishment instead of mercy. That day his voice was taken from him, and a deeper silence was born. But it was not the silence of surrender. It was the silence of transformation. Now every gesture he makes carries intention. A glance toward the horizon means hope. A tightening of his hand around a wooden handle means defiance. He does not need to speak to be understood. He has learned to communicate in the language of presence. As the day unfolds, the sun grows harsher, and the rhythm of work becomes mechanical. Around him the others bow under weight and exhaustion. Yet Silas moves with quiet precision, as if each motion holds purpose beyond survival. The silence inside him is not empty. It hums with unspoken promises. He sees how others look at him sometimes with confusion, with pity, with awe. To them, silence means submission. To him it means power. Power to watch without being seen. Power to wait without being suspected. Power to plan without being questioned. When the overseers pass by, their boots leaving deep prints in the dirt, Silas lowers his head just enough. But behind those eyes, thoughts bloom like storms. He studies them the way one studies a pattern in nature, where they walk, how they speak, where they hide their fear. Every detail matters. Silence gives him the space to observe the truth that noise hides. Night comes quietly, folding itself over the fields. The others sleep, their breath shallow and uneven. Silas lies awake beneath a cracked roof, staring at the sky through the gaps between wooden beams. Stars glitter faintly, distant and cold. He cannot remember the last time he saw them so clearly. The silence here is different, gentle, almost kind. It wraps around him like an old friend. He closes his eyes and the memories return, not as sounds but as feelings. The sting of betrayal, the sharpness of loss, the weight of restraint. Yet beneath it all, there is a current of something stronger, a determination that refuses to die. He does not dream of escape. He dreams of meaning. He dreams of a day when silence will not be mistaken for weakness, when stillness will not be confused with defeat. He dreams of balance, of justice not born from rage but from remembrance. The wind shifts, whispering through the cracks of the cabin. He feels it brush against his skin, cool and steady, as if reminding him that the world still breathes beyond these fences. Somewhere far away there is laughter again. Somewhere voices are free. He wonders how it would sound to speak once more, to let his thoughts spill into the air like rivers breaking through rock. But he knows that time has passed. His silence has become his voice. He rises quietly, walks to the doorway, and looks out over the dark fields. The moon sits high, silver and unblinking. The crops sway gently, and the faint glow of lanterns dots the horizon. He stands there for a long while, the night alive with small, secret sounds, the flutter of insects, the sigh of grass, the distant creak of wood. In the stillness, he begins to understand something he never did before. Silence is not the absence of sound. It is the presence of everything unspoken, the cries, the hopes, the memories of those who came before. It holds truth that noise cannot carry. He presses a hand to his chest and feels his heartbeat, slow, steady, certain. In that rhythm, he hears a message meant only for him. The time for fear is over. The time for waiting is ending. There is a voice in him still, one that no cruelty could ever take. The night deepens. The air cools. Silas steps back into the room and lies down once more. His eyes remain open, fixed on the faint light that seeps through the cracks. Tomorrow will come as it always does, merciless, endless. But something inside him has shifted. The silence that once bound him now begins to speak. A thought forms in the dark, clear as the stars above. A man without a voice can still make the world listen. The sky is bruised with storm clouds, thick and low, pressing against the horizon. The day begins the same as all others. The metallic clink of chains, the distant call of orders, the rhythm of shovels breaking soil. But something in the air feels heavier today. The wind moves differently, restless, impatient. Silas works as he always does. Quietly, efficiently, his eyes lowered but always watching. The overseer stalks the rows behind him, a man who finds satisfaction not in work, but in control. His voice cuts through the air like a blade, barking commands, threats, insults. Each word is a reminder that even silence has a cost. He stops beside Silas and says something meant to humiliate. The words sting the air, but Silas does not react. The overseer laughs, loud, cruel, empty. He does not see how Silas's stillness deepens, how his breath grows slower, steadier. He does not realize that the quiet man before him is not broken. He is waiting. The rain begins in the afternoon, soft at first, then harder, until the sky seems to collapse. Workers scatter for shelter, their footsteps splashing in the mud. Silas moves toward the old barn on the edge of the fields, his shadow bending and stretching beneath the flashes of lightning. Inside, the air smells of hay and damp wood. The storm outside becomes a drumbeat, steady and relentless. Silas stands near the open doorway, watching the rain fall in sheets. He listens to the rhythm of the storm, to the whispers of memory, to the pulse in his chest that matches the thunder. The overseer's voice echoes from somewhere behind him, slurred, angry, searching for something to command. The man is drunk. His words stumble over themselves, his laughter uneven and hollow. He mutters about the storm, about the slaves, about control. His boots drag through the mud as he enters the barn, cursing the rain. Silas doesn't move. His eyes follow the man's reflection in the puddles near his feet. Lightning flashes, carving the scene into white and shadow. For a moment, the world freezes. The overseer's shape framed by light, Silas's silence a wall between them. The thunder rolls again, louder this time, shaking the old wooden beams. The overseer stumbles, then stops. He turns toward Silas, but whatever insult he means to throw is lost in the sound of the storm. For once his voice doesn't carry. What happens next is not a sound, not a word, only silence. When the rain stops, the night hangs thick and uncertain. The barn door creaks open and Silas steps out, soaked to the bone. The air smells of wet earth and smoke from distant fires. Behind him, the storm has washed everything clean, the mud, the footprints, the noise. He walks back to the quarters, his face unreadable. The others watch him, curious, cautious. There is something different in his eyes now. Not rage, not triumph, but stillness sharpened into purpose. He lies down in his place, folds his hands over his chest and closes his eyes. The wind rattles the walls, but inside his mind, everything is quiet. Morning comes with whispers. The overseer's absence is discovered, and confusion ripples through the plantation like a wave. Some say he wandered off drunk and lost his way in the storm. Others say he left out of fear. But those who worked the fields last night, those who heard the thunder break the sky, they look at Silas and see something they cannot name. He does not meet their eyes. He moves through the day as though nothing has changed. Yet every motion feels deliberate, every silence heavier. When the new overseer shouts, Silas listens. When he insults him, Silas turns away. His calm unsettles them all. At dusk, as the sun sinks into the fields, Silas stands alone by the water trough. The reflection staring back at him is no longer just a man surviving. It is a man becoming something else, an idea, a force carved out of stillness. The storm has passed, but a new one begins inside him. He looks up and the sky mirrors his thoughts, endless, quiet, waiting. Somewhere he feels the faint hum of possibility. Silence is no longer the space between words. It is the weight behind them. He turns back toward the cabins, the sound of his footsteps lost in the wind. The first act is done, and the night holds its breath around him. The world does not yet know it, but the sound of silence has begun to change everything. The nights have grown longer, and with them comes a different kind of quiet. Not the peace of sleep, but the stillness that comes when a soul begins to listen to what lies beneath its own silence. The air carries the smell of rain-soaked earth, but it is not the weather that unsettles Silas, it is memory. When he closes his eyes, he sees faces. Not clearly, not like portraits, but shadows that form and dissolve in the dark. Eyes that blink open where there should be none. They do not accuse him, but they do not release him either. They are simply there, present, waiting, watching. He tells himself it is the storm's echo that wakes him in the night. He tells himself it is the wind that whispers in the corners of the cabin. But in truth, he knows it is the weight of what has been done. Silence has always been his shield. Now it becomes a mirror. During the day, work continues. The plantation stirs back to its rhythm, pretending that the missing overseer never existed. A new man takes his place, cleaner in speech, but sharper in control. He carries a book of rules and a polished smile that hides a familiar cruelty. He looks at Silas with curiosity at first, as though studying some rare animal. "They say you don't speak." His tone suggests amusement, not inquiry. Silas doesn't move. The man leans closer. "You understand me, though, don't you?" The words hang unanswered in the air. Silas's gaze remains steady, and for a fleeting moment the man's smile falters. That flicker of discomfort is enough. As the days pass, Silas learns this new master's rhythm. The way his hand twitches when he's angry. The exact pitch his voice reaches before he grows tired of talking. The false warmth that coats every order. Silas watches him with the same stillness he offers the world. At night, the dreams deepen. The faces grow clearer. The overseer's eyes, the first to fall silent, appear most often. They are not cruel anymore, just hollow. Sometimes they blink slowly, as if asking a question Silas cannot hear. Sometimes they disappear into the dark, and new faces form behind them, faces of those still living, those who suffer beside him, those who wait unknowingly for freedom or despair. He begins to sense that silence is not only his. The fields hum with unspoken pain. The workers move like echoes, their voices soft, their laughter rare. The ground beneath them seems to hold the memory of every cry swallowed by the wind. And yet, in this hush, there is also strength, a collective heartbeat beneath the weight of fear. Silas starts to notice how they watch him now. When he passes, their conversations pause. When he lifts his head, eyes turn away too quickly. They have seen something in him they do not name, something that both frightens and fascinates them. One evening, as the sun bleeds red across the fields, a boy approaches him, a child no older than 12. He holds a broken piece of wood in his hands, carved crudely into the shape of a bird. The boy looks up at Silas with uncertain eyes and whispers, "They say you can't talk, but they also say you can make things happen." Silas studies the boy, his face unreadable. The bird in the child's hand trembles slightly. Silas takes it gently, turns it over once, then lifts it toward the light. The child smiles, perhaps expecting a word, a nod, anything. Silas only sets the bird back into the boy's hands and walks away. But in the silence that follows, something passes between them, a quiet understanding. That night, Silas cannot sleep. The wind outside moves through the trees like a slow breath. The moon casts a pale glow over the cabin floor. The faces come again, floating in the darkness like fragments of a forgotten song. They do not frighten him anymore. They remind him. He begins to see them differently now, not as ghosts, but as memories refusing to fade. They are not here to haunt him. They are here to keep him from forgetting. Every eye, every shadow is a story unfinished, a truth unspoken. They are his conscience and his guide. The next morning, as dawn breaks, Silas feels a strange calm. The fear that once crept into his silence is gone. In its place is clarity. He moves through the field with the same quiet grace as always, but now his silence feels larger, purposeful. He no longer carries it as a burden. He wears it like armor. The new master watches him from a distance, suspicion growing in his eyes. Silas notices the man's nervous gestures, the way he glances over his shoulder, as if the air itself has begun to whisper against him. The balance of power has shifted, though no word has been spoken. As the sun sets, Silas stands at the edge of the field, looking toward the horizon. The sky burns in streaks of gold and violet. He remembers the faces again, but now they seem to fade with the light, their eyes softer, almost approving. He understands what they want from him, not revenge, not destruction, but continuation. Their silence feeds his, and his silence in turn begins to speak for all of them. He looks out over the endless stretch of land, the faint wind tugging at his clothes. Somewhere within that vast quiet, he feels the promise of something greater stirring. The silence no longer belongs to him alone. It belongs to everyone who has ever been unheard. Daylight drips slowly across the sky, thick and orange like spilled fire. The world stirs again, the sound of boots, the thud of wood against earth, the slow march of routine that never changes. But beneath it something different breathes, a tremor invisible to those who live only by sound. Silas moves through the rows with quiet precision, his body a part of the rhythm of labor. His silence has become a constant, steady, patient, watchful. The new master's voice echoes across the fields, trying to fill the air, but his words fall flat, swallowed by the hum of work and the weight of something larger than fear. Days have turned to weeks since the storm. The plantation tries to pretend it has found balance again, but tension lingers like humidity before rain. Whispers pass through the fields, fragments of rumor and awe. Some say the missing overseer was taken by the river. Some say his ghost wanders at night. Some whisper that the Silent One made it happen. Silas hears the whispers. He does not turn toward them. But deep inside, something begins to awaken. A realization that silence can echo louder than any voice. The second master arrives one morning in a carriage dusted with red clay. He wears polished boots and the smell of arrogance. He inspects the workers as if counting tools. When his gaze lands on Silas, he pauses for a moment, as though sensing something unusual. Then he smiles, not kindly but with the pleasure of authority. His first days are filled with control disguised as order. He measures output, times movements, corrects even the smallest gestures. The field grows tense under his gaze. Silas remains still through it all, studying him with the same patience he has always carried. But behind his still eyes, thoughts weave quietly, forming patterns invisible to the world. The man's cruelty is not loud. It is in his indifference, the way he looks past human faces, the way his commands slice without passion. This kind of coldness, Silas learns, is more dangerous than rage. It doesn't burn. It freezes. Weeks pass and the tension breaks. The new master vanishes one night after wandering beyond the boundaries of the plantation, seeking to prove something only pride could demand. The morning brings confusion again. Questions without answers. No one saw, no one heard. Only silence remains. The world continues to move, but slower now, uncertain. The whispers grow stronger. The silence that once kept Silas invisible now makes him something else. An idea that moves from mouth to mouth when no overseer is near. By the time the third master takes control, the fields themselves feel different. The air hums with the memory of what has happened. The third is younger, less confident. He carries fear in his posture, though he tries to hide it behind cruelty. He shouts louder than he needs to, as if trying to drown his own doubts. He treats the workers with suspicion, especially Silas. He cannot stand the stillness, the calm in the man's eyes. "You think you're better than the rest, don't you?" He spits one afternoon, pacing around Silas like a restless animal. But Silas does not react. His silence draws out the man's insecurity like a mirror reflecting weakness back at him. That night, rain begins again, thin but relentless. The plantation seems to shrink beneath it, the cabins leaking, the ground turning to mud. The younger master paces inside his quarters, sleepless, convinced he hears movement outside. Every creak, every gust becomes a threat. The night stretches on, filled with shadows that breathe too softly to be real. Morning finds him gone. His room stands open, the lamp burned out, the bed untouched. The rain has washed away all trace of footprints. The wind moves through the open door, carrying only the faint smell of candle smoke. By sunrise, no one pretends to believe in accidents anymore. Silas walks through the field as usual, his eyes steady, his pace unchanged. Yet there is something in the way the workers look at him now, not fear, not entirely. It is something deeper, closer to faith. He has become a symbol without ever speaking a word. His silence has grown larger than himself. That evening, as the sun lowers behind the trees, the fields glow red with light. The workers gather in small circles, their voices low. They talk of spirits, of deliverance, of justice carried by the wind. No one says his name, but all of them think it. Silas stands alone at the edge of the field, the breeze moving through his shirt, carrying the scent of rain and soil. The sky above him burns in shades of crimson, the color of endings and beginnings. He does not look proud or relieved. He looks calm, like a man who has accepted the role the world has carved for him, even if it was not his choice. He watches the others from a distance. They laugh quietly, something close to hope flickering in their tired faces. For the first time in years, he allows himself to feel the faint warmth of that hope too. Not because he believes in miracles, but because he sees what silence can awaken in those who have forgotten their strength. The world has begun to change, and no one knows how far it will go. The silence that once punished him now teaches others to listen. It fills the space between fear and courage, between obedience and memory. As darkness falls, Silas looks up at the sky, stars faint behind drifting clouds, and he understands that what began as survival has become something else entirely. A message, a movement without words. The wind moves softly through the fields, carrying whispers of freedom not yet born. Silas stands motionless, his silhouette framed against the dying light. A living echo of everything the world tried to silence. Tomorrow will come again, and so will the sound of chains, the weight of labor, the command shouted into the air. But beneath it all, something continues to grow. Quiet, unseen, unstoppable. The silence has learned to speak. Night slides softly over the land, cool and heavy. The moon hangs like a cracked coin in the sky, its pale light washing over the fields. In the cabins, soft murmurs fade into sleep, but one voice remains. A hum, low and soothing, almost too quiet to hear. Silas sits by the doorway, his eyes half closed. The sound drifts from the cabin beside his. A woman's hum, simple and broken, yet somehow whole. It is not a song of joy, but of endurance. The melody carries weight, grief, and something stronger underneath. Hope. Her name is Amara. He has seen her before in passing, tending to the wounded, helping the old, holding the children who cry in their sleep. Her hands are always moving, mending, comforting, healing. She speaks little, though unlike him, she has a voice. It is soft, shaped by kindness, but it carries strength born from pain. The next morning, when the sun bleeds across the horizon, Silas finds her in the yard, washing linen in a wooden basin. Her sleeves are rolled up, water dripping from her wrists. She hums the same melody from the night before, eyes lost somewhere beyond the fields. When she notices Silas standing near, she pauses uncertain. He does not speak, but she doesn't seem to expect him to. Instead, she offers a faint smile, not curiosity, not pity, just recognition. A small nod that says, "I see you." Days pass and their paths cross again. Sometimes she offers him bread when others turn away. Sometimes she simply hums when he's near, her voice weaving through the spaces his silence leaves. They speak without words. She understands his stillness not as emptiness, but as a language. Through her, Silas feels something stir that he thought long buried, gentleness. It unsettles him. His silence has always been a weapon, a shield. Around her it softens, becomes something else, a space where warmth can exist without fear. The plantation lives in a strange calm. Since the last disappearance, the new overseer is cautious, watching the workers with suspicion. Yet within that caution, a strange quiet has taken hold. The shouting is less frequent, the cruelty measured. It's as if the land itself demands restraint. One evening, as the sky darkens with the promise of rain, Amara approaches Silas while he's mending a broken fence near the far edge of the field. She kneels beside him and begins to help without a word. Their hands work in silence, the rhythm steady, the air charged with unspoken thought. When they finish, she sits back, brushing dust from her skirt. Her eyes search his face. "You don't have to stay quiet forever," she says softly. "Silence keeps you safe, but it also keeps you alone." Silas meets her gaze. The question in her words cuts deeper than she intends. He doesn't look away, but neither does he answer. The silence between them stretches. Not heavy, but intimate, full of everything he wishes he could say. Amara sighs, looking toward the horizon. "There's more than one kind of silence," she whispers. "The kind that hides pain, and the kind that listens to it." Rain begins to fall in thin lines, darkening the earth. She stands, pulling her shawl over her head. "Take care of your heart, Silent One," she says, her tone gentle. Then she turns and walks back toward the cabins, her silhouette dissolving into the mist. That night, Silas lies awake, her words circling in his mind. Silence keeps you safe, but it also keeps you alone. He wonders what it would feel like to speak again, to let his thoughts break into the air. But the moment passes, replaced by the steady rhythm of rain on the roof, the sound he knows best. Days turn to weeks. Their quiet companionship continues, fragile but real. Sometimes when the work is done, she hums near him, and he listens, letting the melody anchor him to something beyond vengeance. But peace on this land never lasts. One evening, as dusk bleeds into night, shouting breaks across the fields. Orders, confusion, the sound of boots and fear. Silas freezes where he stands. The air grows thick with tension, and a familiar dread creeps through his chest. Later, when calm returns, whispers spread. A master had gone looking for Amara, drawn by her beauty, her defiance. She had resisted, and for that, she had been punished. Silas walks to the edge of the cabins and sees her sitting in the dirt, her hands trembling, her eyes distant. Around her, others whisper prayers. No one dares approach. He steps forward, slow and silent. When she looks up at him, something inside him fractures, not with rage but with unbearable stillness. Her eyes, once soft with light, are clouded now with something that should never have been there. Defeat. No one speaks. No one needs to. The silence between them screams louder than words ever could. That night, the wind howls through the fields. Silas sits alone outside, the world around him dark and motionless. The stars are hidden, the moon veiled behind clouds. He feels something inside him shift. Not a spark, but a deep, steady flame. The silence he once carried as protection begins to transform again. It no longer feels like safety. It feels like purpose. He looks toward the horizon, where the faint outline of the barn stands against the dark sky. The memory of fire flickers through his thoughts, not as destruction, but as cleansing, as truth made visible. The night breathes, and the world waits. Silas closes his eyes, and for the first time, his silence feels like prayer, not for mercy, but for meaning. Tomorrow, the fields will glow again beneath the sun, and work will continue. But something within him has already changed. The quiet that once bound him now burns with intent, and somewhere, far beyond the reach of cruelty, a woman's broken song continues to hum, steady, defiant. Eternal, the night smells of oil and damp wood. The air is restless, heavy with the weight of a coming storm, though the sky shows no lightning yet. Silas walks through the shadows as if moving through memory, each step deliberate, quiet, inevitable. The world feels smaller now, pressed beneath the silence that follows grief. Days have passed since Amara's voice went quiet. Her song, once a soft hum threading through the nights, is gone. The cabins seem emptier, the workers slower, their gazes dimmer. The plantation continues its rhythm, but it is a hollow rhythm now, one that beats without heart. The new master, the fourth in line, rules not with fear but with contempt. He treats the land as something to possess, not to understand. His laughter cuts through the quiet like glass, careless and sharp. He walks among the workers as though they are invisible, yet every glance carries the reminder of ownership. Silas watches. He says nothing. He has always said nothing. But inside him, silence has become a storm contained within flesh, patient, seething, sacred. He notices the small details. The way the man's torch always leaves a trail of oil behind when he walks the barn at night. The way he forgets to close the oil barrel. The way the wind bends eastward after dusk. Silas collects these pieces without meaning to. The world speaks even to those who cannot. In the days that follow, he works with the same calm precision, never drawing attention. But each night when the others sleep, his eyes remain open. He stares at the darkness and sees not shadows, but possibility. The evening arrives quietly without warning. The sun sinks low, bruising the horizon. The workers return to their quarters weary and voiceless. The master lingers near the barn, inspecting his stores, muttering about profit and obedience. The air smells faintly of kerosene, and the wind hums low through the grass. Silas stands at a distance, near the edge of the trees. The world holds its breath, then a flicker, small, almost invisible, a spark born of friction, of chance, of intention cloaked in inevitability. It catches where the torch oil had spilled earlier that day, the faint trail winding toward the barn. The fire begins as a whisper. It crawls before it climbs. The wood drinks it greedily, the air feeding its hunger. Within seconds, orange light bursts across the dark like dawn in reverse. Wild, consuming, alive. The flames rise higher, their movement strangely beautiful like a dance Silas has seen in dreams. The heat breathes across the land, bending the air, turning shadows into shapes that seem almost human. Silhouettes reaching, breaking, freeing themselves. People rush from their cabins. Shouts break through the night, desperate, confused. The master's voice rises above them, first in anger, then in fear. But his words dissolve into the roar of fire. Silas stands still, his expression unreadable. The glow reflects in his eyes, not joy, not sorrow, but clarity. The flames are not vengeance to him. They are transformation. They erase the lines drawn by power, burning them back into dust and light. The others gather at a distance, their faces lit by flickering gold. For the first time, the slaves and overseers stand in the same silence. No orders, no cries, no command. Just watching together the old world turn to ash. When the fire finally begins to fade, only embers remain. Soft, red, breathing. Smoke drifts into the sky, curling like a prayer that has found its way upward. The barn is gone, the master too. In the days that follow, no one speaks of it directly. They repair what they must, bury what they cannot save. But something has changed. The plantation feels hollow, as if emptied of its power. The overseers walk carefully now. Even the air carries a kind of reverence. The hush that follows revelation. Silas returns to his labor as if nothing has happened. Yet every movement of his hands seems slower, more deliberate, as if he is measuring the distance between what was lost and what remains. At night he sits near the remains of the barn. The ground still smells faintly of smoke, but above it drifts another scent, rain on cooled earth. He closes his eyes and listens. The world is not silent. It breathes. The insects, the wind, the distant rustle of trees, each sound alive. Each one a voice the world had forgotten. He thinks of Amara, her hands, her hum, her words. There's more than one kind of silence. He wonders which kind his has become. The fire has not freed him, not yet, but it has revealed something. That silence, when carried long enough, can burn without flame. It can consume everything false, everything cruel, until only truth remains. The workers begin to whisper again, but their whispers sound different now. Not fear, not gossip, belief. Some call him cursed, others chosen. A few simply call him the Silent One. He never answers, never confirms, never denies. The myth grows because he lets it, because the myth speaks louder than any name ever could. One evening, as the sun falls again, Silas looks out at the horizon. The ashes of the barn catch the last light, glowing faintly. For a moment, it looks as though the ground itself still burns, not in destruction, but in remembrance. He lifts a handful of ash and lets it fall slowly through his fingers. The wind carries it away. For the first time in years, he feels no weight in his chest, only emptiness, clean, open, endless. The night settles once more. The stars blink awake. The silence remains, vast, unbroken, alive, and in that silence, the world begins to listen again. The fire has long since died, but its ghost lingers in the air. The fields smell of old smoke and wet soil, a reminder of what silence can do when it decides to move. The land feels changed, not destroyed, but reborn in shadow. Silas walks the rows of cane with the same deliberate rhythm as before, yet the rhythm feels different now, lighter. The others watch him in secret, their eyes carrying a quiet kind of awe. None speak of the barn or of the master who vanished into flame. To name what has happened would be to make it real, and reality, they know, is dangerous. A month passes before a new master arrives. He comes with soldiers, men in grey coats, rifles glinting under the sun. They search the grounds, turn the ashes, ask questions no one answers. They find nothing except fear, and even that feels rehearsed. The fifth master is not cruel in the way the others were. He is cautious, measured, with a face carved from suspicion. He studies the workers as if watching for ghosts. His orders are short, his patience thinner than the morning mist. When his gaze finds Silas, something hardens behind his eyes. Not hatred, not yet, but recognition. A quiet man who never speaks, never falters, who has outlasted 4 masters. There is power in that, dangerous power. Silas continues his work without a change in expression, but inside, he senses the new rhythm of danger, faster, sharper. The silence around him must learn to breathe differently now, softer, deeper, invisible. The soldiers stay for a week, their boots crushing everything delicate in their path. Dogs sniff the air, the fields, the cabins. They find nothing. Silence leaves no trail. When they leave, the fifth master relaxes, and that is when the land itself seems to shift against him. The days grow hotter. The fields shimmer in the sun. The workers move like shadows, their eyes down, their hearts awake. The master drinks often, his paranoia dripping through every command. He fears the night, keeps lamps burning in his quarters until dawn. Fear is a fire that eats from within. One morning, the workers find his door open, his chair empty, his drink spilled across the floor. There are no signs of struggle, no sound in the night, only the lamp still burning. Whispers move like wind through the cabins. No one smiles. No one mourns. The silence deepens, thick with meaning. By the time the sixth master arrives, the plantation has become something else entirely. Not a place of control, but of waiting. He is younger, more violent, all nerves and pride. He carries his authority like a weapon, eager to prove he is not afraid. He whips the air more than he needs to, shouts commands no one hears. But beneath his bravado, even he feels the change in the land. The ground itself seems to hum as if remembering. He fears the dark. He fears the quiet. He fears the way the workers do not beg anymore. One evening, as the sky bruises into dusk, Silas stands by the well, drawing water. The wind moves through the fields like a whisper. He looks toward the main house where the new master paces, muttering to himself. Lamps flicker through the windows, their light uneven, unsteady. A sound cracks the air, thunder distant and low. A storm is coming. The master steps outside, shouting at the clouds, the slaves, the air, anything to drown the silence pressing around him. He trips, stumbles, catches his breath and laughs to hide his fear. The sound is hollow. Silas watches him quietly from a distance. The rain begins, slow at first, then harder, drumming on rooftops, beating the earth into mud. The master disappears inside again, slamming the door behind him. The night deepens, the storm rages, and somewhere within it, something gives. When morning comes, the house is quiet. The workers gather slowly, unsure. The door hangs open, swinging with the wind. Inside, the master lies on the floor, his body still, his face pale. Lightning must have struck the iron bar he kept near his bed for protection, or maybe it was simply the weight of fear that stopped his heart. No one knows. No one dares to know. The overseers send word to town, their faces pale, their hands trembling. Another master gone. The soldiers will return, they say. There will be punishment this time, but the punishment never comes. The storm has washed away all traces, and the road to town lies flooded for days. Silas says nothing, as always, but his silence is no longer just his own. It has become a current flowing through the people, through the land, through the air itself. When he walks, heads lower in respect, not submission. He stands at the edge of the field that evening, the rain finally quieting. The clouds break open, letting the last light of sunset spill across the wet ground. The air smells clean, almost sweet. He closes his eyes and lets the rain touch his face. He does not think of death or vengeance or even freedom, only of the stillness that comes after fire and storm, the kind that feels almost sacred. For a brief moment he imagines Amara beside him, humming softly. He can almost hear her voice carried by the wind. The plantation sleeps that night in uneasy peace. The overseers whisper of curses, the workers whisper of deliverance. And Silas, he says nothing, because he has already said everything that needed saying. The silence no longer belongs to him alone. It belongs to the world that listens now, whether it wishes to or not. The rain has washed the land clean, but it cannot wash away the feeling that something ancient has awakened. The plantation lies quieter than ever. The crops shimmer beneath a silver dawn, their stalks swaying as though moved by something unseen. No laughter, no shouting, only the wind, carrying whispers of names that once ruled here and now rest in ash and memory. Silas moves through the rows, his steps slow, deliberate. He no longer hides his stillness. He wears it like a mark. The others have stopped trying to speak to him. They simply nod when he passes, as if acknowledging not just a man, but an understanding. The world around them is changing, though no one can yet say into what. When the seventh master arrives, the air shifts again. He comes without soldiers, without fanfare, just a carriage and an old book resting on his knee. He is older than the rest, his beard streaked with grey, his eyes quiet but sharp. His voice is measured, his movement slow, as though he listens before he acts. The others whisper that he is different, that he was once something else, not a master by inheritance, but by circumstance, a man who built his fortune trading people before turning away from it, a man haunted by what he's done. He walks the land with a strange reverence, touching the soil as if it might speak back. When he passes Silas, he pauses, studying him longer than the others ever did. "You've been here a long time," he says softly. Silas does not respond. The man nods anyway, as if the silence itself is answer enough. Days stretch into weeks. Under this new master, the work continues, but something about it feels lighter. The whips rest longer on their pegs. The punishments lessen. He speaks to the slaves by name, asks questions that sound like curiosity instead of command. Some begin to hope again, cautiously, like animals testing open air after a storm. Silas watches him. Watches the way he writes in his book at night by the lamplight, the way his hands tremble slightly when he turns the pages. There is weariness in him, not the weariness of power, but of regret. One evening, as the sun melts into the horizon, the master finds Silas by the well. "You don't talk," he says quietly. "I envy that sometimes." His tone is not cruel. It is human. He looks out across the field, his eyes soft. "There are things I wish I hadn't said, orders I wish I hadn't given." Silas stands still, eyes fixed on the horizon. He listens. The man continues, almost to himself. "They say this land is cursed, that every man who ruled it fell to silence. Maybe they were meant to." The words hang between them like mist. For a moment it feels as though he sees Silas, not as property, not as myth, but as mirror. Two men bound by their own ghosts. That night Silas cannot sleep. The man's tone echoes in his mind. The calm of it, the sadness. For the first time his silence feels uncertain. Days pass, and something fragile begins to grow between them. The master asks for Silas to work near the house, to help with repairs, to tend the garden. They share space without words. Sometimes the master reads aloud from his book, stories of the world beyond the plantation, of ships, of cities that hum with life and freedom. Silas listens, absorbing each word like rain on parched earth. But peace is never allowed to last long on cursed ground. One morning, a new overseer arrives, sent from the city carrying a letter stamped with authority. He is young, ambitious, eager to prove himself. He sees the old master's mercy as weakness, and he sees Silas as threat. His eyes linger too long, his smirk too sharp. At first the old master tries to stop him, argues, pleads for restraint. But cruelty does not listen to reason. It only obeys its own hunger. The overseer makes an example. He drags Amara's memory from the earth in the cruelest way possible, capturing one of the women who sang her songs, punishing her before all. The message is clear: mercy is over. Silence will be broken by force. Silas stands among the workers, unmoving, his face blank. But inside, something collapses. The old master watches too, horror etched in his features. He had thought his repentance might be enough to hold back the tide. It is not. Later that night, he finds Silas standing outside in the rain. The old man's voice breaks. "I never wanted this," he says. "I thought I could undo what I did by being better, but the world, it doesn't forget." Silas turns to him. The master's eyes glisten with the weight of confession. "I sold men like you," he whispers. "Women like her, children." His voice shakes. "And I remember their faces. I remember their silence." He reaches out a trembling hand, as if to seek forgiveness, but Silas does not move. His expression is unreadable. The rain falls harder, washing over both of them. When dawn comes, the plantation is quiet again. The overseer is gone. His room stands empty, the lamp still burning. The old master sits on the porch, his face pale, his eyes fixed on the horizon. No one knows what passed between them in those dark hours. Some say the old man confessed everything, that he begged for forgiveness until his heart stopped. Others say Silas walked into his house and spoke his first words in years. Words no one will ever hear again. What remains is silence, deep, consuming, endless. That night Silas stands in the field, the book the master used to write in resting in his hands. Its pages flutter in the wind, covered in the man's final words: "Redemption is not silence. It is listening." Silas closes the book and places it beneath the soil. He looks toward the sky. Lightning flashes far away, brief and beautiful. Amara's song drifts faintly through his memory, weaving with the storm's hum. And in that moment, Silas understands. Not all silence is peace. Some of it is mourning. Some of it is a promise yet to be kept. The wind moves through the cane, whispering a name only he can hear. The morning breaks slow and colorless. The sky is pale, stretched thin over the land like cloth that's been washed too many times. Nothing stirs at first, not the birds, not the workers, not even the wind. It feels as though the world itself is holding its breath, waiting. Silas rises before the sun fully crests the horizon. His body moves out of habit, but something in him is no longer bound by routine. His silence no longer hides him. It surrounds him like light surrounds a shadow. He moves through the cabin quietly, tying his wrists with worn cloth, his gaze calm, his heartbeat steady. The plantation has a new ruler, the eighth and final master. He arrived only days ago, carried in by a white horse and a pride too heavy for one man to bear. He is the true owner, the one whose name the land has always belonged to. The others were caretakers, inheritors, overseers. He is the architect of the system itself. His power is not in the whip, but in the world that protects his cruelty. He walks with the arrogance of permanence, as if convinced that he cannot fall, that the land itself bends to his bloodline. His commands are fewer but sharper. His silence is not wisdom but dominance. Silas studies him from afar, watching the rhythm of his days. The man keeps a strict order, wakes before dawn, prays at the same hour each morning, inspects the fields with the precision of a clock. Every gesture speaks of control. Every glance reminds others of their place, and yet, beneath the surface of this order, the land trembles. The workers sense it. The overseers whisper of a curse that no prayer can lift. The silence that once belonged to one man now covers everything, heavy, unrelenting, inevitable. As the sun rises, Silas walks to the field. His eyes follow the path toward the main house, the white columns gleaming, the air shimmering with heat. Somewhere in that brightness, the world's cruelty sits and drinks its morning tea. Today, it will end. The decision is not born of rage. It comes from something quieter, a resolve as old as the soil beneath his feet. Silas has no words, no weapons, no audience. He has only his silence, sharpened over years until it cuts cleaner than any blade. He waits until evening. The light turns gold, then red, then finally slips into darkness. The world slows, breath by breath. The workers return to their cabins, whispering their nightly prayers. The master retires to his study, a room of books and maps and ledgers filled with the weight of other people's names. Silas stands outside the window, watching through the thin curtain. The man writes by candlelight, his pen scratching softly against paper. He is surrounded by symbols of power. A pistol on the desk, a whip coiled neatly on the wall, a portrait of his ancestors looking down with pride. Silas's eyes trace each object, each memory, each lie that built this world. And then he moves. The details of what happens next are not sound and fury. They are quiet, deliberate, unhurried. The candle flickers, the pen stops, the chair creaks once. Then the silence deepens until even the night seems afraid to breathe. When the workers wake at dawn, the house stands open. The door swings gently in the morning breeze. Inside, the master sits still in his chair, the candle long melted into wax. His eyes are open, staring toward the fields he once owned, as if seeing them for the first time. No blood, no struggle, only the echo of silence, vast, unexplainable, final. The overseers do not speak. They gather their things in haste. Some leave before noon, others by dusk. By the second night, the plantation is empty of power. Only the workers remain, unsure, hesitant, free in a way that feels unreal. They gather near the cabins, whispering. No one saw Silas that morning. Some say he walked into the woods before sunrise. Others say he stood by the well, looking up at the sky until he disappeared into the light. No one can agree, but his presence lingers, not in fear this time, but in peace. The silence he left behind does not oppress. It breathes. It fills the air with something new. For the first time, the fields sound different. Not the rhythm of chains, but the rustle of wind through open earth. As night falls again, the workers sit around a small fire. Someone begins to hum. The melody is faint, almost fragile. A song they all remember but haven't dared to sing in years. One by one, the others join in. Their voices tremble at first, then grow stronger, blending with the wind. It is Amara's song. The flames flicker, throwing soft light across their faces. No overseers to silence them, no master to claim their breath. Only the sound of a song that once carried through the dark, now free to rise into the open air. And in the distance, near the edge of the field, someone thinks they see a figure. Still, watching, quiet. The outline of a man standing where the road disappears into the horizon. But when they blink, he's gone. Only the tall grass moves, whispering softly as if saying goodbye. Weeks pass. The plantation changes. The land is divided, the name of the master erased from ledgers. The White House collapses under its own neglect. Nature reclaims what was taken. The silence that remains is not the old one, not the silence of fear, but a living silence, full of memory and breath. Stories begin to spread, carried by travelers, whispered in markets, sung in secret. A tale of a man who never spoke, yet made the world listen. They call him many names, the quiet storm, the last slave, the echo of the fire, but most simply call him Silas. Children hear his story and stay silent for a moment, listening to the wind. Some swear they can still hear footsteps in the cane or feel the warmth of unseen fire in the night. Silas becomes more than a man. He becomes a memory, the part of the world that cannot be silenced, the proof that even without a voice, a person can speak louder than history itself. And in that final silence, the land learns to rest. The fires are gone, the chains rust, the fields bloom again. Silas's name fades from paper, but not from the wind. His story lives where no one can burn it. In the hush that follows cruelty, in the pause between words, in the soundless heartbeat of freedom. The world moves on. Empires rise and fall. New voices fill the air. But sometimes when the wind sweeps low through the fields, it carries something faint. A whisper, a hum, a presence. It says nothing. It simply is, and that is enough. The horizon swells with gold, bleeding into the blue of morning. Smoke still hangs faintly above the fields, curling like the last memory of a long, cruel dream. The air feels different now, softer, alive, uncertain. The world that once groaned under the weight of chains now breathes again, hesitating between past and future. Silas walks alone through the open field. His steps are slow but steady, his shadow long against the dew-soaked grass. The earth beneath his bare feet feels warm, as though it remembers him, recognizes the weight he carried for so long. Behind him the plantation lies in silence. The grand house is only a silhouette now, its windows hollow, its doors open to the morning wind. He does not look back. For years, the world reduced him to a body, a number, a silence. But now, each breath feels like a declaration, not of words but of existence. The chains that once bound his wrists lie scattered behind him, glinting faintly in the light. Rusted, empty, powerless, the land itself seems to sigh. The trees creak like old bones stretching after centuries of stillness. The birds return to the branches, timid at first, then in flocks. Even the soil seems to pulse with new life. The silence is no longer heavy. It hums like a heartbeat beneath the wind. Silas stops near the old well, the same one where he once washed blood from his hands, where he once knelt in despair. He looks into its dark mouth, deep, endless, echoing. Once it swallowed screams. Now it reflects the sky. He reaches out and drops a small, weathered object into the water, the last chain link he kept. It falls without a sound, vanishing into the dark. The ripples spread outward, soft and perfect, until the surface calms again. He closes his eyes. Somewhere in the distance the workers stir. They do not yet call him a hero. They do not know what name to give him. All they know is that something has changed. The air no longer tastes of iron and fear. The fields no longer belong to a master. The silence they once dreaded now feels like peace. Amara's song drifts faintly on the breeze, not sung by her, but remembered. A woman hums it as she gathers her things. A child picks up the tune and carries it further. Soon it spreads from cabin to cabin, voice to voice, until the entire field seems to shimmer with it. Silas listens. His lips part slightly as though he might hum too, but no sound comes. He doesn't need it to. The song is his voice now. The melody rises, fragile but unbroken, carrying every pain, every name, every lost moment into the open sky. He begins to walk again, following the dirt road that leads beyond the plantation, beyond the fences, beyond the world that once caged him. The road stretches into the horizon, endless, unwritten waiting, with each step. Memories flicker like old film. His first day in chains, the lash against his back, the cruel laughter, the sound of fire, the faces of those who fell, and the whisper of Amara's hand in his. Each memory burns bright, then fades into the wind, leaving only light behind. When the road crests a small hill, he stops and turns for the first time. The plantation lies far below, smaller now, insignificant. The smoke has cleared. What remains is earth and sky. He raises his hands, scarred, strong, trembling slightly. For a long moment he simply holds them in the air, feeling the sun warm his palms. He cannot speak, but his silence roars. A line forms in his mind, not a sentence, not even a thought, but something deeper. The words he would have spoken if the world hadn't stolen his tongue. They took my voice. I made the world hear my silence. The wind seems to answer, carrying the sound of distant singing, the laughter of children, the crackle of new fires built not for destruction but for warmth. Silas lowers his hands. His face softens, not in joy, not in sorrow, but in release. The story that began in chains ends here, in light. He steps forward again into the unknown. The road bends, disappears into the trees, and he follows it until the mist swallows him whole. Years pass. The land changes hands. The ruins of the plantation crumble into the earth. Grass grows where walls once stood. People build new homes, plant new crops, raise new songs. They speak his name rarely, but they feel it. In the pause before dawn, in the stillness before rain, in the quiet strength that moves unseen but unbroken. Stories travel far. Some say he walked north and vanished into freedom. Others say he found a hidden valley where no master had ever stepped. A few whisper that he still walks the fields on nights when the wind is high, checking that no chains remain, but all agree on one thing: wherever there is silence, he is near. One day, an old woman sits with her granddaughter beneath a tree that once marked the edge of the plantation. The child asks, "Grandmama, why do we stop talking when the wind blows?" The old woman smiles softly, her eyes bright with something ancient. "Because," she says, "that's when he listens." The child tilts her head. Who? The one who made the silence sing. The wind stirs, rustling the leaves. The world holds its breath for a heartbeat, then exhales, gentle, full, alive, and in that moment the silence speaks again, not as grief, not as vengeance, but as freedom itself, vast, endless, eternal. The song continues long after the voices fade, carried by the air, rising and falling like waves against time. There are no chains here. No masters, no slaves, only the quiet rhythm of a land that has learned how to heal. And somewhere beyond sight, a figure walks through the morning light, barefoot, unbound, silent. The road never ends. The song never stops. The silence, his silence, endures.